All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of coffee Q&A here in the OnoCoffee channel. I'm Jay, your host, and today we're going to be talking about coffee and actually we're going to be talking about coffee cupping and what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Coffee Q&A. How's it going? Good to see you. Kent Keown is with us. Kent, how's it going? I forgot to turn on the sound. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. In today's episode of the Coffee Q&A, we're going to be looking at cupping and how to evaluate coffees, because it's one of the processes that I think is important, especially if you're a coffee professional. But if you're a coffee enthusiast, I think it's good to know. We kind of touched on it the other day, but I thought that, you know what, let's get a little bit deeper into it and do a little bit more of a critical review of a coffee. This is a coffee that I have here. It's our kind of house-based coffee, right? So this is actually something I roasted yesterday afternoon. So we're within 24 hours of the roasting. Now, in most coffee organizations, they will roast coffee one day and then they will evaluate that coffee that they roasted the next day. Typically, that's because it's just a matter of logistics, getting people together to evaluate the coffees. It's very difficult to evaluate it the day of the roasting. Now, we have done tests on this live stream where the coffee quality, the cup quality is degraded after 24 hours. So from the moment you roast it, there is a degradation of the coffee flavor, meaning that one of the byproducts of coffee roasting is the coffee will then start to generate CO2 gas emissions, right? And that emission of the CO2 occludes your ability to taste the flavors of the coffee. So that's why people always say, like, wait a week or so, 5 to 7 days for the degassing to happen, because that CO2 production by the coffee is actually going to reduce the amount of flavors you can taste in your coffee. And that starts pretty much immediately and then ramps up through the 24-hour period. And then by the time you get to 24 hours, like, the flavor of the coffee is so different or different enough. Now, one of the things that if you're working professionally with a coffee and it's a coffee that you're using on a regular basis, you know what the coffee tastes like. You cupped it many times or drank it many times. So you kind of have a better idea of what it's tasting like and how it will eventually taste. So that's kind of what you work with. Now, in this particular case, we're going to be doing what would be considered more of a QC or quality control type of cupping rather than a purchase tasting, right? Russell's, well, that's good to see you. And Naomi, good morning. Is this the House Nation? This may be part of the House Nation. I know I wrote House on it, but it's right now just a component. But I put that there so I don't forget. Kerry says, I see that Starbucks is closing many locations. Do you think that is due to the right? Oh, I haven't heard that. I think with Starbucks, they're probably at a point where, they like, we had this happen, 15 years ago, where they grew so big, then they had to scale it back. So maybe they're at a point again where they've grown an incredible amount and now they're scaling back. There was that period like 20 years ago where there was a Starbucks like on almost every corner. Like, I remember in New York City, like, you could walk outside and there's a Starbucks here, the Starbucks there. So maybe that's where they are. I haven't really followed what's going on with Starbucks, so I don't really know. I'll have to look into that and see what might be. Power plants with us, Luckin Coffee. Luckin Coffee. What is Luckin Coffee? Is that a brand from Korea? Is that what it is? Anyway, so this coffee is actually a Brazil it's called the Wajupe. And Wajupe is a coffee I've been using now for most of 2025. And it's actually quite a nice coffee. This is the 2024 harvest. No, actually, what is the harvest? Let me look this up here. Oh, no, this is actually a recent delivery. Oh, no, this is a 2025 crop. So this is the Wajupe semi-washed. Now, some of the specifications that are on this is New York 2-3 screen 1416, and New York 2-3. I don't know too much about the New York. So New York is where the C market is based, the coffee market is based. So all coffee futures are generated from New York City, and they set some things that they set. So a lot of the designations that we have in coffee today, New York 2-3, different screen sizes. Like European prep, strictly high grown, SHG, things like that were set many, many, many decades ago when they were kind of formalizing the whole commercial coffee trade. So a lot of the terminology that we use is actually based in the commercial trade, where you're buying futures of 2,000-pound lots. Is it 40,000-pound lots of coffee, and you're betting on whether the price will go up or down, and you're buying coffee based on that. And that's how a lot of the commercial coffee is traded in the world. In my case, in the case of specialty coffee producers, we follow some of that, but we don't necessarily adhere to it, meaning that our contracts and our purchasing isn't necessarily based on all those different specifications. It's nice to know European prep. It's nice to know that a coffee is strictly high grown. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people in my niche of the business tend to buy on flavor and quality, individual flavor and quality aspects, rather than quality specifications meant for large-scale commercial purchasing. And to me, that's where the big difference between us and them lies. Of course, they're the ones that make all the money in the business, because that's where the real trade of the business happens. The rest of us here are just kind of small operators. Power Plant says, fear the luck in coffee. Fear. I have no idea what the luck in coffee is. But I guess from according to Power Plant, I'm going to find out soon enough. All right, so this coffee, so 1416 screen means that there are these screens that they will sieve coffee through in their green state, and it has to meet a certain size. And this will be 1416 in the screen size, which is a pretty decent size, and it should be quite. And this coffee is actually a nice quality coffee. Like I said, I've been using it for most of 2025. So it is something that I like, and I think people have responded well to this past year. So we got the coffee here. So there it is. Light on it. So 1416 screen. What do they say about New York 2-3? I never really understood the New York numbers, because I never really had to deal with it. So that's why I can't really tell you too much about it. But this is the Wajube. It's from Sul de Minas. And Minas is a part. Sul de Minas, I believe Sul means south in Portuguese. My Portuguese is very poor. But it's part of the Minas Gerais. My American site just wants to say Minas Gerais, but it's not Gerais. I think it's Gerais. And it is one of the more known growing regions of Brazil. And luckily, this coffee has not started to get the 50% tax that my government has put on coffee from Brazil, because, they got rid of Bolsonaro, their corrupted president, and our corrupted president, I guess, is upset about that. So he put a 50% tax on everything across the board, including coffee, which coffee, by the way, in case you might not have realized this, coffee, because it's a product that the United States cannot produce in any quantity necessary to sustain our consumption, has never had a tariff on coffee. This is a historical time in coffee and this nation, in that we have a tariff on coffee now that we've never had ever in the past. Now, other nations will place tariffs on coffees or outright ban coffee importation because they have their own coffee industries to protect. But there's no way that production in Hawaii there's a little bit in California. They say there's a little bit in Florida. There's no way those areas could ever produce enough coffee to sustain our consumption. So, there seems to be a lot of stupidity happening in government today. And, as the president said, there's a lot of stupid people running the country. And you know what? He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Okay, so let's have a look at our coffee here. We've got nicely roasted. I kind of did this to a light medium. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to try this, because I was kind of pushing the roaster yesterday, I was like, let's see if we can really drive this thing. So, as you know, I've been using a 6 kilo Gießen roaster, which 6 kilos is about 13 pounds, right? Maximum load. And most roasters, when they talk about weights for their roasters, are really, they say that you really should only use 60% of the roast capacity in order to get the best results. But, yesterday I was kind of like, let's see how much we can drive this coffee. So I loaded up with 18. The one load was 18.339 pounds. Normally I'll run 11 pound loads. Lately I've been pushing 15-pound loads, but yesterday I was like, let me try this load at 18.339. Well, it was the end of the bag, so I was like, let me just push whatever's in here. And it's 18.339 pounds, and I was like, let's see what happens, right? And actually, and so that's what this coffee comes from. So we're going to see how this may have affected it. Did it affect it poorly, or is it still a very enjoyable, positive coffee? That's part of it. Ron, good morning. Kieran says, no, not yet. Power plant. The only large coffee cafes that are from other countries are Percent Arabica, UCC, and Tim Hortons, and of course, Starbucks. I do like, where I had a really nice coffee in Bangkok was at Kaizen. Kaizen, was it on Sukhumvit 49? I think it's Sukhumvit 49. Yeah, 49 or 45. They have one out there. And that was, the guy, Jay, who owns Sometimes I Feel, I asked him, hey, man, where should I go? He's like, go check out Kaizen and get what did I get there? I got the macchiato. Actually, there's a video about my visit there. And I was like, and I got there and I was like, uh-oh, is this one of these like fika-looking places that I'm not going to like? But actually, I thought it was really great. I really had a great drink there. It was really a nice, one of my more memorable coffees, Actually, a lot of the places I went to in Bangkok were very nice. Like, I really enjoyed, I think, all of them that I went to. I went to that Invisible Room coffee. I went to the old school breakfast kind of coffee joint, and then I went to go visit that roastery. What's it called? They had the little like perfume sprayers for their dry coffee. Really nice too. That was also really good. I met the owner. I think he's Polish. Anyway, or Czech, Eastern European. A very nice guy. Carol. Why can't I remember that? Memory can be so difficult. Alzheimer's could be setting in. But let's get this ready. So what we're going to take this coffee. We're going to do a cupping. And we're going to do what's called a 3-sample cupping. And 3 samples for QC may be a little bit overkill. It all depends on what you want to do. Now, if you remember the other day, we were talking about the other coffee and looking at the score sheet. I mentioned that there were 5 tick marks on some segments of that score sheet. And that's because when you're doing critical tasting, like for green evaluation for purchasing, you'll want to do like the standard is to do 5 setups, 5 examples of the same coffee in order to discern whether or not any kind of defect that may occur, whether that is an anomaly or a part of the character of the coffee. It also allows you to check uniformity of the coffee across a spectrum. And so that's kind of why you do multiple cups. And so in this case, in the critical settings, we want to do 5. In this case, which is what we do a lot of in coffee, generally speaking, is to do 3. And 3 will give us a little bit of a spread in case one may have a defect, right? Like, especially if you're doing coffees from Rwanda, sometimes you'll come across the potato disease, and it just makes the coffee taste like potato. And maybe there's one bean that has that potato taint, and that one bean will flavor the entire cup, and it's really noticeable. But you want to know, like, is that something that's so if you only have one example, you think that, oh, this coffee is terrible. But if you have multiple samples and you taste that one, if you taste one across the range, perhaps it's not a big deal. If you taste 2 or more, more of a big deal, right? So it's just kind of that kind of thing where you're trying to give the coffee the best chance to represent itself. Karen says there are 2 Kaizen shops on 49 and, there's 2 Kaizens on 49. Wow. And Soy Ekamai 19. I haven't been there, but I have not, because he said to go check out the one at 49. The Ekamai, I believe, is the original, the big one. I've seen pictures of it. I haven't been to that one. But the 49 it's small. They have a big La Marzocco, and they're very nice. I mean, I think I thought the macchiato was really great. Oh, that's what it was. I think he told me it was an Australian cafe. And to be honest with you, I know Peter joins us, but for some reason, I just have like an aversion to Australians. I even said that in the video, I think. Like there's always been like this Australia America battle, like even starting in the old days with like Paul Bissett, who was the very first World Barista Championship. It would always be like America, Australia, no mate, that's bad, mate. Hey bro, that kind of thing. So, but but it's only because people are always like, oh, can I have a flat white? And that I gotta be honest with you, that always irks me. Like a flat white. This is America. You can have a cappuccino. I mean, I'm not gonna say that. I mean, we did make distinction between flat whites and cappuccinos, but I still would like. But we charge the same price because same thing. But really, the difference between, for us at least at Spro, cappuccino would be the rule of thirds, right? 6-ounce cup, 222, whereas the flat white would be it'd be basically like a little latte, which is a thin layer of I liked it with a thin layer of foam. But I'm only kind of hypothesizing this based on like Australian guests who would come in and kind of like help coach me in how to develop the right profile. But I think the true flat white doesn't have any foam. But I was like, we have to have foam. We have to make it look pretty. Like otherwise, it just looks like brewed coffee. Like why are you even bothering? Power Plant says Seoul has the best coffee shops in the world, hands down. From fun to serious and to creative to traditional, all using the best equipment and very good. Whose place I really liked? I've been to Fritz. I've been to the one barista champion of 2015. He had a nice little shop. I always liked. I like the. There's a place called Onion in. I don't remember. I can't even remember the area. But my friend, she took me there during one of my visits, and I was like, oh my gosh, this place is awesome. It's like, how Japanese have those old houses with like the ceramic roofs. Like this was like that. Like Koreans have their own style of that house, but maybe older and like. But this place, they like took this old house compound. It's a whole compound. They took it and then they renovated it and they glassed it, right? Instead of like, I guess they meant whatever. Like Japanese, they use like the rice paper or whatever windows. They got rid of those, whatever the equivalent would be in Korea, and they put glass, like plate glass, and they light. And I was like, oh my God, this place is awesome. And it was awesome. I was like, this is like one of the very coolest cafes I've ever been to on the planet. And I really, the coffee, and they like the Japanese, they do very high quality baked goods and coffee. So it was really great. And actually my friend Inyong was the one who took me there. She opened her own cafe recently, which I haven't seen yet. That she's actually the main reason why I want to go back to Seoul to go visit her cafe. She opened a place in Seongsu, is that right? Gimisa is the name. Gimisa Coffee, and hyper stuff. When I saw the pictures, I was like, "Oh, girl, what is going on with your cafe? It's like out of control. It's like it's very stylish, like hyper modern." I was like, "Well," and she's an amazing coffee person, and I've been friends with her for many years. I really love the girl, and so I'm so excited that she opened her place, and I'm looking forward to going there to visit. Like I want to go back to Asia, and the main reason I'll go to Seoul is to go visit her shop. I told her when I'm coming, I'm going to come. I'm going to call you. I'm going to come there and check out your place. But so we're going to get this going here, and what we're going to do is we're going to measure out 13 grams, because these are 9-ounce rocks glasses, Gibraltar rocks glasses from Libya, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You can make it 9 ounces. You make it any size. 9 ounces is a pretty good size, and I like the glass. Like a lot of people in the business use ceramic, like this kind of ceramic, right? Which is very standard and normal. But I like the glass because I can see what's going on inside. So I really like that aspect of it. And 9 ounce seems to be a good size for most cuppings. And we're going to use 9 ounce cups with 13 grams of coffee, relatively medium ground. It's going to sit there for 4 minutes. And here's the thing. So you can use pretty much any standard you want. And I don't remember anymore how we got to 9 ounces and 13 grams, because that doesn't match our typical brew ratio of, 2 grams for every finished ounce. Like this should be 18 grams by that rule. In this case, I don't know how we ended up there. It's lost. The origin of this is lost to time. I learned it somewhere along the way, probably from a master, and I've never changed. And the thing is, I've never changed mainly because we've always evaluated coffee in this way. And so to maintain consistency, I just never changed it. So it's like, okay, we'll just keep it that way and we'll evaluate the coffee that way. And you still get great results, meaning that you still get a great representation of the coffee with this ratio. But honestly, you can use any recipe that you want. And you don't necessarily have to do this in this way, because if you want to evaluate the coffee that you're drinking, you can do it. You can just brew it however you normally like to brew. And that's perfectly acceptable way of doing it. And actually what we would do at Spro is that we would test our coffee this way in a cupping, but more importantly, we would brew it, because that's ultimately that is ultimately the way that the guest will have it. And for us, it's always about what will the guest experience. Like that's the ultimate goal, is what do they experience, or would you experience as a guest? And, is that what we want to offer? So yeah, that's that. So let's get some measuring going on. We're going to take our grinder, the Ode Gen 2 from Fellow. We're just gonna use the 6 setting, right? Center grind, or maybe actually let's go a little bit. We're gonna go to the 5 setting, give a little bit of fineness more to it. Paraplan says the Korean traditional houses are called hanok. Oh, okay, great. Anguk is the Cafe Onion location. Yeah, that's such an awesome cafe. We've talked about this. We always have to remind people. There are the Rebel. Nice, thank you. Paraplan says there are several Hanok style cafes in Seoul, even Blue Bottle. I will not go to that one. Kelly says there is a place here called Mother Roasters that you have to go through a jump shop to get into. Oh, I like that idea. I had some espressos, very good. 1-1 is still my favorite as far as coffee. The 1-1 is very, very excellent. Young says, this is so off topic, but I always see in the background. I wonder what it is. What is that white ceramic with the cartoon character in a red shirt behind you on the top shelf? Oh, this is, yeah, baby. This is a little pot that's from Italy. And then, of course, Austin Powers, baby. Austin Powers. Yeah, we got all kinds of stuff hanging up here. What else is up here? But yeah, that's if that's what you were talking about, that's what that is. Powerplant says Anthracite Coffee was on the forefront of the cool cafe movement. They opened the first one in a derelict shoe factory. All the furniture was reclaimed. The roaster was behind soundproof. Oh, I'm not familiar with Anthracite Coffee. I've been, speaking of which, inside like a weird factory building. I've been to, what is that? Oh gosh, I know the owner and I can't remember the name of the coffee called. Coffee Libre. Coffee Libre. I've been there. That's kind of a fun place. All right, so we're gonna measure out coffee. Let's get the coffee measure. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna do 13 grams per serving. We're gonna do 3 setups. I gotta remember how to do that. Let's just put this here. So I wish these fit under. Actually, this smaller one will fit, I think, right? So, nope, nothing fits. Nothing fits under there. So we do 13 grams servings. And let's double check that. Now we're going to put them directly into the vessel we're going to use. Oh, there's more, right? Didn't I get 13.2 in that one? Next one. You know what? Okay, that's fine. I was about to make a point here that says, you want to tare each cup. If you do it with the cups themselves, you want to tare each cup because they're not all the same weight. And that just kind of blew my whole theory there. All right, 13. Yeah, that's close enough. I don't know why I'm going to get all crazy about that. Okay, so we've got our 3 samples, and we're going to set them up. Now, if you're in a cupping scenario, and you have 3 or more, 2 or more sample. Well, I guess 3 or more samples. 2. No, yeah, any more than 1. You want to make sure that if you pick these up, especially for the smelling, the fragrance evaluation part of it, you want to put it back where you got it from. So if you pick it up here and it's this number 1, you put it back. If it's number 3, you put it back in the same place. Don't start moving them around, right? It's critical to keep all of these in order. And that's true, especially if you're like working in a more, if you're cupping with other people, right? You or another person or many other people, you want to keep everything in order. And so again, like we talked about before, you just kind of pick up the cup and bring it to your nose and inhale deeply. A lot of people will cup it like this. In modern times, I don't think people do this as much. Because, the whole COVID thing and like everyone's all like upset about or paranoid about getting like ill. But if you're all by yourself or in your own controlled environment, you can do whatever you want. Nice warm tones, nice little bit. That's very pleasant. Now he says, yes, that's it. Such a random pot. I would have guessed, Jeff. Yeah, that was from Italy. Do I have any Japanese? I have. There's a little tiny sake server. What I got from Japan one year though was, where is it? Oh, these Hakusan sake. These are little sake cups. I've actually only used it once. I kind of got it. They're cool. They're cool. Ken says, I'll be cupping a selection of U.S. coffees next week. Someone sent me a bunch of samples to check out. I'll have no information to I'll have no information up front. Oh, good, good. So another thing that you might that if you're interested in, in the description down below, I did put links to an 8-part video series that I created on green coffee buying, like basically how to select green coffee from start to finish. It's 8 parts, and it's actually on the Spro Coffee channel. It was one that I made. I think the date is like 2020. I think we made it 5 years ago now, but nothing's really dramatically changed since those days, so everything should still be very current. But I thought I'd put a link down below in case you're interested. Proplan says there's a new Star Trek Voyager game all about Tuvix. Oh, nice. Voyager was my favorite one. All right, so let's get ready now. We're going to take this. Now, by the way, this is a coffee that is 1,300 meters. Grown roughly 1,300 meters. Now, this is a co-op called Koshupe, and it has been in operation since 1937 and has like 600 smallholder farmers. And how these work, right? Like you have all these farmers in a region that belong to the co-op in some way. I don't know. I think the co-op gets paid as a percentage. Like they don't get. So if I gave you, if you're one of the farmers, I'm the co-op, and I got $100, I'd give you a percentage of that. I don't know exactly the percentage, but the co-op would keep some amount of the money because they have to operate. But there's 600 different members of the co-op, or at least 600 farmers feeding the crops. And it's actually, even though this is even though this is a regional profile, but it's actually, because there's so many farmers, there's actually it's actually a blend of different varietals, mostly Mundo Novo, Catuai Red, and Yellow Catuai, and as well as a little bit of Caturai, which is a hybridization of Catura and Catuai. So it's all kind of jumbled together because there's all 600 farmers, and they're not all growing the same crop, so it all comes together. Semi-wash means that they pulp it and then dry it. So that's pretty much the coffee, and I really like this coffee. It's got some nice cocoa notes, or typically. So let's try. We got it set up now, and let's get our timer together because we're gonna run our timer. And we're going to get our rinse cup here with our cupping spoons. Let me just bring this, make sure we are to boil. Okay, good. Good boil. And so we're going to start it and do our timing. Oops. Again, you want to pour in one continuous motion right to the edge with a lot of turbulence. And let's put a little bit in there. All right. We're good to go now. Now we've got, you can see here, you can see the cluster forming. So we've got good, what do you call that? We've got good gassing of the coffee, and we're rolling along. It's a good thing. Does Puerto Rico produce coffee? Yes, that they do. I know that American Samoa has started producing small batch. Oh, wow, really? That would be very interesting to try. Sole making coffee. That sounds good. Yes, Puerto Rico has some coffees. A friend of mine, she has a coffee plantation down in Puerto Rico. And then one of my clients opened a place called Chévere Cafe in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. They get all of their coffee from Puerto Rico, from a farmer there. I think though there's some issues I think there, but they have their coffee roasted by the farmer, which I think can be a little bit difficult because a lot of farmers may not necessarily know a lot of nuances about coffee roasting. I think that's true for a lot of farmers, and that's to be expected. They're on a farm and they're just trying to sell coffee, so they don't necessarily know a lot about roasting. Doesn't mean they're not able to learn or improve, but certainly that can be the case. All right, so while we're doing this, we're going to smell the wet aroma. So again, again, that nice kind of earth tones with a little bit of like dark cocoa. Now we talked before about how to do the breaking. We're going to break the crust, and the other coffee was a little bit older, so we didn't really have this strong crust that's forming. Like, I don't know if you can see this here, but there's actually a good layer of crust happening. Actually, I should pull this back a little bit more for you. Okay, and you know, in this case, we're going to really have a lot of crust to dig through. Again, if you're doing this for yourself, you want to make sure you get your spoon deep into it and push back to create kind of a hole, right? So you can stick your nose and be like, right? Is cupping prep typically done with boiling? Yes, boiling water, you know, because you're dealing with larger quantities, and normally you don't really just have one sample like we're doing today. You'll have multiple samples, so you want it to have enough thermal energy in order to pour all the way across. Oh, where are we with the timer? All right, 3 minutes. We have another minute. We're just waiting for the 4 minutes, and then we can do our breaking. A little housekeeping reminder, we're not going to have a live stream tomorrow because I have to go to Pennsylvania. I have to go to DC today, but I don't have to go there till the afternoon. So we're good here. But tomorrow I've got to go there pretty early. So I'm attending an event tomorrow. It starts at 10 a.m. So I need to be there fairly early. All right, we're getting close to 4 minutes. Now I'm going to use one of these as a visual representation because I have three of them. So when I was talking about doing this whole like cupping thing, actually let's zoom in more. So when I talk about doing the cupping, when I say you're going to put your spoon in, you kind of want to have it vertical like this, and you want to push it in and put it down in and then push it back so that you get this little bit of space there. And that's kind of where we expect the aromatics that may be lingering underneath the coffee cap to come out. And you want to stick your nose right up here, like right there, and you want to sniff in deeply, inhale deeply to get all of the possible aromas and beauty of the coffee. So basically what it's going to look like, so that this is a visual reference for you, so come down and then come back like that. And that moment is where you stick in your nose and you suck in hard, right? So for example, if I'm going to go from the side profile, right, we're going to put it in here. You get close. And that's it. Pretty much after you've done that, you know, you'll see people at other cuppings and they're going to be trying to do this. I don't know what they're doing. That whatever was under there is gone. Like, I don't know why you're doing that. You're wasting our time. So you want to get in there. Ah, lovely, lovely, lovely coffee. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 spoons. Now, this is the housekeeping part of cupping. And then we're just going to skim the crust. Whoops, I totally messed that up. Skim the crust off the top. Rinse between samples. Again, let's do the skimming again. Not bad. And then the last one. Much better. That's much more like the form that I'm used to. All right, so we've got our coffee. And I'm also replacing the rinse water with fresh rinse water. It's always a good idea to replace the rinse water as often as you possibly can, just to keep any kind of residual stuff out of it. All right, so we've got there were 6.5 minutes, and me personally, I don't mind. I typically will start now, but like I said the other day, you want to be careful because you could scald your palate and have, blisters form inside your mouth. And the thing is that you want to plan for a cupping over a good half an hour to 45 minutes, because we want to try the coffee in the different stages, right? From hot to cool, because through each phase of the coffee existence, it's going to change a little bit. Different characters will be highlighted and diminished depending on the temperature. Like right now, there's a little bit of astringency, and I kind of don't like it. But it's also really hot. So we want to let it cool. We're going to let it roll. Normally, a lot of people will not start their actual tasting until 10 minutes, and we're still a minute and a half out, 2 minutes and a half out from that. So Kiona says, actually, how far are you from DC? If I had to go all the way to the White House, it'd probably take me an hour, 20 minutes without very much traffic. It all depends. But today, I'll actually have to go down to Bethesda, eventually to Bethesda. I've got some stops along the way, but Bethesda will be the ultimate place to stop. But I don't have to be there till like 4 o'clock. But I'm going to start around 1 because I've got some places to stop along the way. So it's not like I go there directly. Praplan says, my palate is scalded beyond repair from eating. Yeah, it's always crazy like that. All right, so let's have a look here. Almost 8.5 minutes now. Oh, I see that we're 40 minutes into this live stream. Gosh, it took that long. It always takes me so long. So much talking. So much voila. Oh, okay, let's have another taste. Oh, see, the astringency that I mentioned a couple minutes ago is very much diminished. Actually, not even really there anymore. So the coffee really does change quite a bit. Now you hear me slurping, right? So you take a little bit. You take a little bit into your cup, into your spoon, and I would say, don't take more than that. That's plenty. Like, you don't necessarily need to have it overflowing, because it could be, you just don't need it. You want, and like I said, and so when you slurp it, you want to think of a spray bottle, and you want to spray your interior mouth cavity with coffee, like that. So you're aerating the coffee to give it more oxidation and give it like greater flavor potential. Now I'm swallowing it. You don't have to swallow. What you can do is you should spit, right? You should spit. Spitters are not quitters in this particular case. So you take, you slurp, and then you spit. Now, if you're doing this by yourself and you only have one coffee like I have here, swallow all you want. It's not too salty, so swallow all you want. Now, but when you're cupping a lot, man, it's brutal. Like I remember my first true hardcore industry cupping. It was 2007. I was back in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I was doing the Taste of Harvest Ethiopia that year. And we had 2 flights of cuppings, 75 coffees in each flight. Now remember, these are true critical evaluation cuppings, right? So we're not talking 3 samples, we're talking 5 samples of each coffee. 5 samples of 75 coffees. And I went through and I tasted every one. And I spit everything. So after 150 coffees of 2 rounds of 75, so 150 coffees times 5, what is that? So tasting 750 different samples of coffee over the course of several hours. Even though I spit everything, there was still so much caffeine that I had ingested just through my glands. I was so messed up. I felt all kinds of funky. I was like, go back to the room. It was really bad. It was terrible. I would not recommend people doing that. So yeah, so do be careful if you start cupping a lot. Do be aware that if you you could very well, depending on your situation, be consuming more caffeine than you ever have consumed in your life, or that you would normally consume in any one drinking session. Just be aware of that, even though it seems like we're just taking small little samples of the coffee, it seems fairly benign. But you want to be cognizant of that potential aspect of what could happen to you. All right, so we're there, 12 minutes, 18 seconds. And so let's have a look at different things to evaluate. Let me grab this other sheet from this other bag that we were using the other day. We'll use this sheet as our guide. Let me pull back a little bit. Okay. This is the Specialty Coffee Association of America's cupping formula. This is the 2004 update. They're actually moving away. Specialty Coffee Association is now moving away from this style of evaluation, which I think is a mistake. Like it makes it more touchy-feely and less like empirical, and I'm not really a fan of that. But what we're going to be looking at today, we're going to be looking at fragrance and aroma, right? We've already gone through that. That was pretty good. Like intensity-wise, I'd say it's medium. So these scales here about intensity: dry aroma, break aroma, dry fragrance, break aroma. So those are kind of medium in intensity. So I would say, very good, 8. The flavor and aftertaste acidity. So let's go through that now. We're going to look at so flavor-wise, I think we're getting a lot of there's a lot of dry cocoa, like dry powder cocoa, dry cocoa powder. To me, with the Wajupe, that's always one of the more dominant flavors of this coffee. It's got a very clean aftertaste. Acidity is very low, not a very bright coffee, not like the Misty Valley that we've been drinking for the last few weeks. This is definitely a nice balance. Actually, in some respects, I would be interested in taking this coffee and maybe blending it with some of that Misty Valley to kind of give it more complexity, a little bit more, like a little bit of that chocolate, a little bit of that cocoa dryness, and then some of that fruitiness, brightness from the Misty Valley. I think that could be very, very nice, right? What else are we looking for? We're looking for, so acidity, for acidity, I would say that acidity is low. Now, here's the thing. We've got intensity scale, high, low. So I would say it's low, but qualitatively, I wouldn't, just because you go low in intensity doesn't necessarily mean you go low in score, because they're not necessarily correlated in that way. What you're looking for is intensity and then the quality of whatever acidity. Now, it's very low, but it's also not, what I do sense is not a harshness. So I would say it's still very good. So I would put it at an 8 in this particular case. Then if we're talking body, I would say is very similar. Body is kind of more of this medium, lower. So again, intensity here, heavy and thin. I would say it's kind of more of a medium body. And again, the medium body is very nice qualitatively. So at least 8, maybe 8.5 for that, for the body, I would say. Let me double check that. Now, as the coffee is cooling, and this is probably why you want to take your time with the coffee before actually writing your scores down or really finishing your evaluation, is that as it's cooling now, just in the couple minutes that have passed, we talked about acidity being very low. Actually, right now, the acidity is starting to be a little bit more apparent. Right, I'm starting to get a little bit more of that on the palate. Oh, definitely that the cocoa powder is still there. Whereas a few moments ago, the cocoa powder was super dominant, overpowering everything else. The acidity now is starting to come into its own. It's starting to give a little bit more. There's a slight dryness now to appearing. There was a softness in the aftertaste a few moments ago. Now that's becoming more of a drier kind of finish, cleaner kind of finish. So, and the acidity is starting to be a little bit more apparent. Oh yeah, that's definitely improving as we're going along. Then the aftertaste, like I said, there's aftertaste here as one of the score points, and the aftertaste I think also very good, like 8.5, something like that would be really nice. Good, very clean, very smooth, a little bit dry on the finish, like not quite tannin kind of dry, but just kind of like a very nice dry, clean finish. And then the balance, if we want to look at balance, and balance overall has been very good. Nothing is out of whack. No character is too dominant. All right. Gosh, sometimes I'm surprised at how nice a coffee I can choose. Kent's got to go. All right. Have a great weekend. See you next week. Naomi says, so this coffee demo will be your coffee? Probably. Although as I'm chopping this now, I'm thinking, ooh, it'd be nice to brew some and go to get some donuts. It's terrible, all this donut eating. Actually, I was thinking tomorrow, like on the way to Pennsylvania, the part of Pennsylvania I have to go to tomorrow is in like the southeastern corner of Pennsylvania. I was like, is there a donut shop on the way? All right, so that's kind of like the overall, like the different categories. Then the last categories are where we talked about before, where you have these 3 categories that have the 5 boxes. And those are uniformity, clean cup, and sweetness. And as you can see, there's all these on this particular score sheet are 10s, mainly because those categories were looking for aberrations, right? Is there, like in uniformity, are they all uniform or relatively uniform? Is there one that has a defect? Is there one that's so out of whack from the rest that it's notable? And if it is, we want to just tick mark that cup that's out of whack. And then are all of them clean? If you're buying nice quality coffee, you almost always have perfectly clean cups. And then sweetness, we're not looking necessarily to evaluate the intensity or quality of the sweetness of the coffee, or whether it's even sweet at all. We just want to see that, again, more about uniformity. Is the sweetness, however the sweetness expresses itself in the coffee, is it uniform across the board? And in this case, we're using, on this score sheet, it's designed for 5 cups. We're only using 3. So, you just kind of like would ratio it out however you believe that works. Because at the end of the day, you're really, these score sheets and scoring, even as a professional, it's really for your own use, like your own internal use to evaluate. Like you could be a judge and you may have a different scenario where it's being published, the total score is being published by the organization so that the world can see it. But for the most part, if you're buying coffee for yourself, or if you're a professional buying coffee for your company, it's really only for you to like necessarily be worried about. And I would keep them if you do score sheets. I would keep them just so that in case you need to go back to them like this, we can go back and review what we scored in 2022 and 2024 for this particular coffee, and see where we are today with it. But those are, I tend not to get too caught up in like the scoring part of it. Like we're not really marking it down, but what we're looking for is and at the end of the day, no one really buys coffee based on scores per se, right? Scores are meant to help inform the buyer, like, oh, should be of good quality. But really, everyone that I know will still taste the coffees and buy it based on their evaluation of the taste, because that's really the important aspect of it. M0's with us. Have a good weekend. Naomi says, I have to sign off too. Oh, good to see you, Naomi. Next time. We look forward to seeing you. And Peter says, coffee has gone up $1 here. Oh, gosh. Yeah, coffee's going up. Coffee's going up. You can thank America for that. All right. So that's generally how we evaluate the coffee, and how you might want to evaluate the coffee. So what I'm doing here today is really just kind of like we did the roasting yesterday. and we're seeing how does this coffee perform. Are there any issues with this coffee that I need to be concerned about or to outright reject this roast? And nothing is coming up. I think it was roasted very nicely. Even though that we went through a high capacity on the roaster, like I said earlier in the live stream, where I normally run 15-pound batches lately, I ran this one at like 18.339 pounds. Like I really like jammed that coffee in there and drove the roaster because I wanted to see like what could happen and like how it might turn out. And I find that this coffee at that batch level has turned out to be relatively the same as other batches. So that's a good thing. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm going to start to roast 18-pound batches because I don't necessarily need to do that. The 15-pound batches we've been running is perfectly ample and adequate for our purposes. But in case there are situations that may require that, it won't be necessarily detrimental to that kind of thing. So let's have a taste one more time, see if there's any changes at all. All right, so like I said, there are some videos down in the description below that cover this in greater depth. And basically, it's a green coffee series that I produced on the Sprout Coffee channel that shows you how we would process in buying green coffee, from trying to select green to sample roasting to cupping and evaluation, and then to final purchasing decisions. It's an 8-part series, so if you're interested in that, have a look at that. Otherwise, I guess that's going to be it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll be back again next week because remember, like I said, I've got to go on this. I got to go to an event tomorrow, and so we will not be having a live stream tomorrow, Friday. We'll be back again on Monday next week, the 29th, with another episode of the Coffee Q&A. So I hope you have a wonderful day out there and night, and see you next time. Mom, yes, we will be going live tonight from George's birthday. Hope to see you then.